So
Now,
11 for me.
I have a link to it, but it's a rather long link. If you want it, I can send you that.
Oh, good. You know what?
What?
Go. Are you able to see comments? By the way, we are live. I told you we were just going to have fun for an hour.
Oh, we're
To
live.
which you
Are we
replied,
live now?
"Oh, only an hour?" Yeah, it's 11, and as the other guys show up, they will come right in because my husband will keep his
Okay.
he'll keep his whatever it is, keep your eyes peeled or whatever.
Ah,
So
so
to attend that event, do you want to just put it into the
yeah,
comments
I'll put
to
it in
the
there.
right of us? So not in private chat because then nobody else gets to see
Right,
it.
right. I'm gonna.
But yeah, right into the comments.
All right, let's do that.
Yay. And Matt, I'm purposefully giving you a few moments to settle and make sure, but can you hear me?
Just fine. Yeah. How about me?
Yes, you sound like you've already been perking this morning
That's
with
right. How you doing?
clients, which is why you are here, is
Yes, ma'am.
because of what you do. So please keep doing that.
Thank you.
I'm so glad. And Jeff has a ooh, live, right?
Live
It's
chat
as
on Zoom. Yes.
yeah, Zoom. And so, yes, I had it in the right spot and then I put it in the wrong spot and there was a snafu and now we're going to put it back in the right spot that it is actually Thursday, the 26th at 11
I
a.m.
used to be a Dr. John's song. I was in the right place, but it must have been the wrong time.
Hey, I can hear the music right now.
Okay.
There we go. Yeah. Life in the fast lane. Is that what you just said?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Yay. So we've all got stuff perking. There is this weird moment just before we go live where I think, oh no, is it already time? I need to grab people's attention and work on. And it's like, wait a minute. I invited people to a party. So, get the door open and lights going, music, little life in the fast lane
Will
going.
you excuse me 1 minute? Let me get some water. I don't know
Oh,
what
yeah,
happened.
do that.
I'll be
Yes.
right there.
Everybody take a hydration break. Matt, I do hope you've got something to keep your vocal folds lubricated. Mine's bubbly.
Oh,
Where did I
cool.
put
No,
the
no problem.
can?
I've already percolated. I'm on coffee cup. I think I'm on at least 60 ounces of coffee so far today, so I'm probably good.
Golly. I wonder. I did not develop a taste for coffee, and it's very sad for those who absolutely adore it. I am dandy with chai. In fact, I just started using. It sounds like a commercial. But I started using the bullet blender
Oh,
with
nice. Yeah.
medium size ice cubes. The littler ones just turn into nothing, but the medium size ice cubes, and then it becomes a chai blended. Got some milk. I throw in some extra cinnamon and vanilla. You would think that this was a show about aspects of aging, but I'm just saying we're all living. We're all living, and I have done so many things for the first time in my 64 years of life, which almost everyone agrees that when you are in your childhood or early adult years, that 64 sounds like the ceiling. Like 64. I mean, do you even do anything after that? Just buy a more comfortable chair or something. So I've done so many. I've eaten sushi for the first time. I have moved to a different state for the first time. And that was a little over 2 weeks ago. So I'm kind of catching up again. Abby Ritchie goes, "Welcome back. I've missed you." And I'm like, we needed to say so many goodbyes. We needed to downsize. We needed to travel very, very slowly so that we could visit every auntie and uncle we've got on the
Wow.
way.
So cool.
So, and we did, we got to see all of them. We weren't sure exactly when things would happen, and everyone was able to welcome us in. We did wear masks when it was prudent, and just so it's our 40th anniversary. Being mature adults, we spent our 40th anniversary in Disneyland.
Nice.
I have to say, I didn't go on the fastest rides because I did want to enjoy our dinner that day. Oh my goodness, Matt, Ruben, do you already know each other? That does happen sometimes.
No, we have not met before, although I did see a bit of your podcast, and I'm very interested in learning more about what you're doing. And how
Oh,
a fellow from you were in mortgage, the mortgage business.
Yes, sir.
So how do you make the transition to? I understand on one level, but just personally, how you made the transition to put on a podcast on serving seniors.
Yeah. Well, I like the phrase. I believe it was Zig Ziglar, right? But it's numerous people say it. But if you help people get what they want, you can eventually get what you want, right? So
Absolutely.
lead with a giving hand. So I just kind of figured, well, if I wanted to help seniors with what I do, it would probably make sense that seniors are going to need other services as well. So what we did, we created this podcast where we highlight businesses and professionals that help seniors not just get by, not just survive, but thrive in retirement. And a lot of those businesses we found don't have any marketing. So they don't, or they have marketing, they don't do videos. So we just thought, well, why not do a video podcast? So we do the episode, we share it with the business so they can get, they get reels, they get short clips, as well as long form content that they can use for their marketing. And then, how it helps me is I just happen to be on the podcast. So if someone's watching it, they may pick up on what we do as well. And then the reason why the mortgage side makes sense is we're finding that, 60%, 70% of seniors, the largest item on their net worth is home equity. Unfortunately, if they don't figure out how to effectively, efficiently, and ethically use some of that, really all it does is mean they pay higher property tax. It means they pay higher home insurance if they call their insurance person. So all this equity actually hurts them more than helps them. It actually pulls from their budget instead of adds to it. So we work closely with seniors to show them how they can convert some of that equity to usable cash in an effective and efficient way, so they have a better retirement instead of a worse retirement, if that makes sense.
So do you promote reverse mortgage?
Yeah, so reverse really is a characteristic of a mortgage. So meaning that you pay the mortgage, right, it goes down. That's forward mortgage. If you don't pay it, it goes up. So reverse is really not a full loan, it's a characteristic. So the main program we work with is called the HECM, HECM. So not everyone knows this, but FHA came in and wiped out reverse mortgage in a lot of states. And then there are some other programs you can do now, but the FHA version of it is called a HECM, HECM. So it's basically like it's a HELOC. Do you guys know what HELOC is? Have you ever dealt with it?
No.
So HELOC is a line of credit that you can actually use. Anybody can do a HELOC, right? So it's basically a line of credit, like a credit card, but it's usually better rates and terms because it's tied to your house. So if you have a house with a lot of equity, you can go to your bank and you can get a HELOC, and meaning that you could use some of your equity, then you get money back and you pay it down. It's kind of like an accordion. You can expand it, grow. It's a line of credit. The challenge that FHA found for seniors is that those for most banks are only good for 5 or maybe 10 years. So if you do that at 62, you pull $100,000 out. I used to work at a bank, and it was a daily occurrence where someone would come in and say, "Hey, my payment was $212. Why does this say $37,900?" they missed the letters that said it was due the next month. And they had to figure where they're going to get all that money when they only make $2,000 a month on fixed income. Does that make sense?
Right.
So
Right.
FHA fixed that, meaning that these are never due. There's no ending date on these programs. So they're only, well, it's kind of a joke. In the fine print, it says they're due and payable either when you die, sell the house, or reach 150 years old. So usually A or B happens before C, if that makes sense.
Okay.
But that's the cool part. And then the other part about it is that FHA noticed there was advantages of reverse mortgage, meaning you could borrow money but not have payments. But there were some negatives, meaning that in the fine print, if FHA wasn't involved, if people could call your note due, take your house, that kind of stuff. So FHA wiped that out and made it very consumer protection, meaning that you can't lose your house. The only way you can lose your house is if you fail to pay your taxes and fail to pay your insurance, which that works the way with everybody. So it's basically it's a line of credit that is consumer protected, that you can make payments, but you don't have to, with the only negative being if you don't make a payment, your balance goes up.
Right.
And that's the reverse mortgage side of it. But all the negative of reverse mortgage, losing your house and all that, has been cleaned up because FHA has made sure that the consumer is ultimately protected.
Well, reverse mortgage has been around for what, 20 years or more?
Yeah, reverse mortgage has been around for years. And what would happen is, like, if a bank would do a reverse mortgage, like an in-house reverse mortgage where FHA is not involved, they can make it say whatever they want. For example, in Tennessee, that program's not even, it's illegal to do a reverse mortgage that's not FHA insured, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
A lot of states are that way as well. So it's kind of, we spend most of our time evangelizing, meaning that we are dispelling myths and concerns about something that doesn't exist anymore. But it's got so much publicity that now we're trying to explain and re-educate, retrain people.
Absolutely.
This is amazing.
The people I've run into, Christine, are people who, reverse mortgage. Oh, no, that's the last thing I want. I don't want them to take my home away from me.
Yeah.
And you're fighting that perception, even to this day, of people who don't see the advantages of it. Although they're trying to soften the blow when they bring out Tom Selleck to promote reverse mortgages. But the concept here is that most people want to remain in their own home for as long as possible. And so this is an opportunity to do just that. But there's another component to this as well. And that is in the language that you referred to, Matt, that the letters that people get and the jargonese. I don't believe whoever's writing those letters are cognizant of who their audience is and how they might more simply and in fine print, not in fine print, but in larger print, get that message across so that people feel comfortable with the message.
Wow.
You nailed it.
Hey, I wanted to just shout out to Russ Hedge, who tuned in to say hi. Russ, we are all getting a lot smarter here, and we are only 13 minutes in. We already know that Jeff has an upcoming, and I did move it over into the comments, so I think that it's there and available now. That Jeff's got he's got an event tomorrow, and Matt came from helping more people to do more of what they need and settled into his office really fast with only 60 ounces of coffee so far. His words. I think I got that right. And then we went into HECM and HELOC, and HECM is HECM. And we're hearing all these things about, can I say balloon payment? It can be written differently, so there isn't the surprise of a balloon payment because someone hasn't gotten to their mail. And as seniors, there's a lot of reasons. I'm going to say that a lot of the seniors that I was that opened the door for me so I could come into the home, those seniors were taking care of their sibling, their spouse, their special one. And that senior was just spending hours a day on the phone trying to work out everything for their loved one. And those, yet another envelope from the bank is just probably one of the 4 piles
Sure.
on top of, and I'm telling the truth, like the TV console,
Yep.
that TV still works. Somehow they could find tubes for that gorgeous piece of furniture, and somewhere it was in those stacks. And wow, HELOC, is that also an acronym?
Yep. So that would be non-age specific, Christine. So great question. So that would be where anybody could go to the bank if you have enough equity and get access to some of that money. And then that's where the negative comes in on those, is they're usually for working people that have good incomes coming in, because at some point you got to pay the piper, because the bill on those every month is usually just an interest only payment. So what happens is you're lulled into a false sense of security by just paying your 200 or 300 or 400 a month. And then all of a sudden you're planning on, I'm going to take my tax refunds, I'm going to pay it off, eventually my scratch off ticket's going to hit, right? And you think all that. And then what do they say? The days are long, but the years are short. And eventually those short years add up to 10 years. And that's when the senior would owe the full amount on a HELOC, and they'd have to figure out how to pay for it. And then that's one of the big advantages in what we do, is there's no day of reckoning, there's no end date, there's no due date, while the senior's still with us, if that makes sense.
Wow. Yes, Jeff.
So it really works.
Christina, I just wanted to say, in terms of the broadcast tomorrow, it's called Standing Up for Our Future Selves.
That's awesome.
Yes, and it's addressing how we can effectively address ageism in not only this country but globally. It is a number one issue globally, and what we're saying is, here's a subject that most of us want to try to ignore. We're all doing, if we live long enough, we're going to become old or older. And yet, if we don't take the time to consider it, we are truly in store for both issues. But on the reverse side, there are so many opportunities available to people as they age. And we have many people, as you said, Christine, you said, people think of me at 64, I should be sitting back and not doing anything and this and that. No, I'm in the prime of life. I want to do something. Don't tell me I can't. And so what I want to do in that conversation tomorrow is create an awareness among the participants that there are all sorts of things that you can do to change the perception of age. And it doesn't have to be starting a podcast. It can be thinking about what the words you use and the words you say when you talk about yourself and when you talk about others. And so it can be as simple as, wait a minute, let me stop and think for a minute. What does it mean when I say you're over the hill? What am I telling somebody they can no longer do something? He's an old man. It's used in humorous situations. It's used in non-humorous situations, and it is across the board in terms of that message being addressed. Go into any card store and pick up a birthday card for someone who's turning 40, let alone 50 or 60 or 70 or 80. They are some of the most negative cards you can imagine. I mean, if somebody sent that to you, you might feel offended by it, and yet it was meant to either be a joke or, you are getting old there, it takes more effort to blow out that candle. No, let's stop thinking in those terms. So I just wanted to bring that point across. But I also wanted to go back to the comments about the words that we use. There are too many people who are in positions of authority, particularly in marketing and PR, that are not attuned or not aware of their audience. So one of my bugaboos for the longest time was when I got my, I have a United Health card. It's the same whether it's Blue Cross, or whatever it might be. But look at that card and look at the point size of the phone numbers on there to call. Okay, and there still is room on that card, so it doesn't make it doesn't put anybody out of shape to enlarge the letters just a little bit so that it's easier to read, because most likely the person that uses that card is probably in their 40s and up. They're more likely to need health care more so, and we're not tapping into understanding that market. And I have to tell you, I have called them repeatedly over many years, and I get customer service, and I say, I can't be the only one telling you this, and they say, yes, we get so many complaints from people, and we pass up the ladder, and they do nothing.
Yep.
So where is their customer service? So and this is the healthcare system. So anyway, ageism is across the board. Yeah, there isn't any area of life that you don't see some aspect of it. So
I have learned so much about ageism. I didn't know the term ageism a number of years, just a few years ago.
Yeah.
I did not know what it was. I had to Google it. Like, what do you mean ageism? And then I did invite people onto the screen who are changing the narrative.
Yes.
And are, writing and speaking and creating birthday cards that aren't putting down the put down cards. They're
Right.
just bringing up
Right.
that positive. And so, like, I made some signs and put them out. I didn't even ask permission. I put them out in a public area for
Yep.
people to walk by, and then I listened to them and talked with them. And I will say that it was people of different ages, and there was different things that were being said, and I just wanted to see reactions, because I'm learning. And one of the things that I learned, I'm going to say, from Jeanette Leardy, she just recently published, and it may have been from her. I want to say the other gal's name, but I'll say it wrong. Who said it's what you want to look at are expectations. That me, what was examining my own expectations on a situation. And that is assuming that that person would want things this way, that this is helpful. And you have to bring in both. Where is the accessibility for me and anyone else to be able to read the prescription on the little jar, to be able to read the emergency number, to be able to access what is needed for continued life, not just convenience, not just entertainment.
Yeah.
And then also, I took a picture of it, still have it on my phone, a magnet in your typical, it was actually called a pharmacy store. That's part of the name of it. And the magnet was a drawn character in underwear with little arrows pointing everywhere. Finger is up in the nostril. And basically it was, this is what an old geezer is.
Yeah.
And all these things are wrong with him. And I'm just going, I'm really understanding this a lot better, because that means that my life, as I continue to live, actually loses quality at the end of my life. And it's been proven that it shortens a person's life who is beyond my age to think of themselves as no longer valuable. And this is my theory, Jeff. This is my theory
Mm-hmm.
that people of notoriety, people who get seen by a lot of people in whatever category, stage, screen, whatever, it's kind of like I'm the unpopular person at school. I never sit at the popular table. I'm never wanted in those circles. And so I have learned that being bullied is just part of it. And so now I'm going to make fun of myself before they get a chance, and I'm going to keep them laughing. So I've already locked myself in as lower than them, always make fun of myself first because of their perception of me, their expectations on me. And so I'm just like, oh, boy, I really don't like this. And I did experience that. We adopted, I will say the words, but I don't want to keep talking this way, late in life. In other words, most people who bring home a baby are 15 years younger than we were, and we adopted 3 different times. And a person who was at the age that they could have been my parent, that person said, "What are you doing adopting another baby? Do you know how old you're going to be when they're graduating from high school?" And that rung in my ears for 18 years, that somehow I needed to pretend that I was younger, or I needed to make fun of my age before. So here's this real thing that I'm discovering.
Or what else could you have said? What else could you have said? How about,
Wow.
I have, how old were you when you adopted?
Last adoption, I was 42.
42. I have 42 years of knowledge to give to this child. I lived 42 years of my life. And as I approach my birthday, I'm about to embark on another year journey around the sun. Okay, it's not about age; it's about how you perceive it. That child can learn so much from an older parent. My ex-wife and I adopted a child. We didn't adopt. We had infertile infertilization process. And I was, at the time, I was 42, I believe. I was your age, maybe a little older.
There you go.
And my wife was 40, and we tried, and we finally had to resort to the in vitro fertilization.
Yes, you're right. In vitro, yes.
Yeah. And we were fortunate that at the first try, we were successful. And I'm now 73, and I will tell you, I still feel that was the best decision that we made. I don't feel old, and I don't feel that I'm out of touch with my daughter, who is now a very successful doctor in Denver, by the way. And she's now 27 years old. So it doesn't matter. It just doesn't. It's if you think it matters, it matters.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Matt, I do not mean to leave you out of this
No,
conversation.
that's awesome. It makes me it makes me think of one of the first success books I ever read. It was called "What You Should Say When You Talk to Yourself" by an author named Shad Helmstetter. And one thing that really rings true, or really spoke to me in the book, it said that by the age of 18, we've all been told no, stop, quit, some form of that, probably 150,000 times. But we've probably heard, yes, you can do it, go for it, somewhere around 10 to 20,000 times.
Yeah.
So it just talked about how your mind's a computer, garbage in, garbage out, and it's, good stuff in, good stuff out. So just talked about ways that you could, exactly what Jeff was talking about, take the negative thoughts, rephrase it, and I'm an old mom, I'm too old for this, or I'm highly experienced, I'm going to be the best mother this kid could have got. They're so lucky they have me because I've had so many life experiences, right?
I know.
Saying the
I've
same
been
thing,
growing my love for 42 years.
Yep.
And the
Absolutely.
same for that person who was a parent of
Mhm.
multiple children. It's like, do you stop loving? Do you run out of love when you're, this person being
Right.
Yeah.
the age of a parent I mean, could have been a parent of mine,
Mhm.
or a peer of my parents. And it's like, oh, am I going to run out of love?
Mhm.
I don't know. But how do you change the narrative without fighting, without lashing out, without, how do you, I've seen this for a lot of things like racism, just a whole screen full of men. A woman was hosting it. And, how do you handle a situation like that and cause somebody, cause them to pause? And Matt, I really appreciate you saying that. This book on success, things you should say to yourself when you're talking to yourself. You say the title again.
Yeah, it's What You Should Say When You Talk to Yourself. I believe it is by Shad Helmstetter. He was one of the first people to really talk about self-talk.
That's right there. There's that thing that somebody can look at. I guess there's books that I want to write on caregiver self-care and things like that. It just I have written some books. Okay, first of all, Jeff, have
Yeah.
you published a book?
Yes. Published the
I
book.
thought I saw one on your profile
Yeah.
picture.
It's called Wisdom of Age. And it's perceptions from one generation to the next, perceptions and insights from one generation to the next. And the reason I started that is because I think it is just overkill and ludicrous to think that a person is old when they reach whatever age. We have arbitrarily decided that 65 was old, and that's the time for people to retire. Okay, in many industries, that still remains the cutoff age. Most of us cannot afford to retire, and so what are our options? And that's when I mentioned earlier about opportunities. There are really tremendous opportunities if we begin to look in that direction and think of ourselves in other ways. But the reason for the book was to dispel the myth that you're old at a certain age. What is that number? What is that number? So what I did was I went into the elementary schools and high schools, and I asked the superintendent of schools if I could do a brief survey with their classes. And the survey basically asked 4 questions. I wanted to know if they knew any old people, if the student knew any old people, how old was old, and what's one bit of advice they'd give to somebody younger than themselves. Okay, responses were overwhelming. We had over 300 responses from students just in this area, and they were just precious. Then I went beyond that, and I worked with colleagues of mine, and I was in assisted living facilities and et cetera, et cetera. So my oldest responding is 103. Same question: when do you consider old? Okay, and what you discover is, to a 5-year-old, 12 is old. To a 12-year-old, 20 is old. Okay, so it really is a relative term. I think it was Oliver Wendell Holmes said old age is 15 years older than I am. So at that point, nobody gets old, But we decide that people based on industry are no longer have value. So in IT, for example, there are people hard pressed to get a job if they're over 30. In marketing, if you're over 40, you're it's old ideas they think you have, and you can't keep up with the trends. Well, less than 15% of advertising dollars is spent on the aging market. Yet that market generates over $7.1 trillion a year in contributing to consumer goods and services in the economy. How do we ignore that? We just are ingrained to think that they're set in their ways. They already know what they want. They're not open to new ideas. They're all, not true. Not true.
Hey, Jeff, I'll add one thing, and 90% of those dollars are spent with Tom Selleck commercials on reverse mortgage, just so you know.
Really? Yes.
No, just kidding, but that's what I hear all the time.
Yes.
How many reverse mortgage commercials are you guys going to run? It's like, that's not me. I have nothing to do with it. I don't even know Tom Selleck.
Yeah.
Oh,
You got to know
yes.
Tom. You got to know Tom. You ever see Magnum PI in the 80s? He was the hottest guy.
That's right. I'm saying I know who he is. I just don't know him.
You haven't borrowed a power tool from Tom.
No.
Yeah, so you don't know him. Yeah,
Okay.
we feel like we know people. Well, Matt, I didn't ask you the same question. Have you written a book?
Ooh, no, good question. Nope, no book. I've focused on podcasting, so that's kind of been where I've focused most of my energy. So hopefully to write a book one day. My vision is to live a life exciting enough that I will want to write a book, and most importantly, someone would actually want to read it. So that's what I'm currently working on.
Very good. Golly, what would happen if your life was so exciting someone came to you and said, I would like to write about your life?
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. Scott is D. Scott Smith, motivational listener. And he and I got to listen to a gal, and boy, I bet you he's going to get it into the comments because I am really great at forgetting things. So if anyone needs to forget something, they just wish they could forget something, tell me, I'll forget it for you. But we got to sit in an audience of thousands of people at tables. It was a huge room in San Antonio, Texas, and listen to a gal who was tasked. I mean, this was after years of I would just say journalism on her terms, was tasked with writing the definitive historical accounts of past presidents, and was given, open doors to go in. And she, through the years had crisscrossed with a gentleman who was always writing the speeches for several of the presidents. They ended up getting married. She just gave this amazing story of their life, of the time that her husband was like, all that we've worked on has come to nothing. It just feels like things aren't going right. And that after a few years, he wanted the boxes to open. And she's going, there is a lot in our boxes between my writing and your writing. There she is. Okay. Doris Kearns Goodwin's.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah. We got to just sit there. We could see her knees. Yeah. I mean, like it wasn't just a thing on a screen. She was right there. She was being interviewed by a gal of notoriety in the Texas Library. Mm-hmm. I would say she was the president of Texas Libraries. And to hear her go at it. And honestly, I did take a moment where I went, okay, really look at her when she's not speaking, when the other gal is kind of, doing the looking at her script and making sure that she asks the questions that this gal's ready to talk, and just look at her. And if she was a person sitting in a chair, you could pass her by, a person could pass her by and think, oh, that person sits in a chair. I mean, look at her outward appearance. She's lived a long time. Yeah. She's probably a little bit fragile. This, that. then her voice comes out and you hear what she has done, who she has hung out with, how she stood up to people going, no, this is my life. You're not taking over my life. I am great at putting together words. But, just, it was, I was just sitting there, thinking, this is such an honor to be in the same room and hear her just going at it unedited. It was amazing. And then every once in a while she'll come up on my feed and I'll be like, what's she up to now? But it could be that a person would pass by and not know that she's been kind of a national hero, an advocate, grab all the bulls
Yeah.
and wrangle all the horns if as necessary, and standing up for causes and doing something. She was asked to do that, and that is a very tiny sorority fraternity of people who would be asked to write the historical account of this person who will always be there, regardless of ups, downs, ins, outs. They will always have a place as one of the presidents. So I'm sorry, I'm just jabbering on.
That's great.
I'm glad you're doing those podcasts. I don't know if all these recordings are going to be the books of the future. And of course, with voice to text and AI, probably they could take what I have so far, which is a little over 100 episodes, and just plop everything in, listen for my voice, and, make, you guys help me outline. Oh, things are coming back into my mind.
Yeah, I've got two tools I'll be able to share with you you'll be able to take these and you'll be able to make them into reels for marketing. So you'll just upload it and then you'll get your reels, and another one it'll take your entire episodes, and then on one side of the screen it'll have your video. The other side of the screen it'll have it like a Word document. And if you want to edit your video, all you do is backspace on the Word document and it'll actually change your video.
Wow.
Change your video? Oh, this is through AI.
They call it it's just it's just a website. I don't get hung up on AI.
Did you want to share it right now?
Could you share that, please?
Yeah, the one that I'll share, the easiest one is called Opus, OPUS, Opus Clips. So what you'll be able to do, Christine, when you save these is upload them. And you know how on all the different platforms, you will see the short videos that have the words, like that they call them, they kind of call them TikToks, but there can be on anything, but it's like
the words, and like the one that's being spoken is colored.
Exactly. Yep.
Gotcha.
So if you take this 1 hour and upload it into that tool, what it'll do is it'll break it down probably into 9 or 10 clips that you can go back through and watch and edit them. And then you just hit save. And next thing you know, what we've done here for the last hour could be your marketing for the next 2 weeks, because you'll have all these different clips you can start sharing without doing anything extra besides uploading it to a website.
Very nice.
Wow. And I know how to backspace. So I'm already.
You are in. You're so in. What they'll allow you to do is they do it by the number of minutes they spend editing. So you can just sign up Opus Clips, put in your information, and then try it out. So it'll give you like a free trial of some. So like, for example, once you save this one, you can upload it, try it out, see if you like it before you sign up. And then you get a pretty hefty amount of minutes. I think it's about $30 a month if you wanted to actually pay for it.
Wow.
What a plug.
Jeff, you're probably like, what? I do stuff too. Hey.
Yeah. So you can have, I was gonna chime in on what you were saying earlier about the famous author. What I like to think about when we talk about people like that is, if you think through, when I think about like what they've done and different things, it's like a daunting task, right? To be that person. But then I kind of take a step back, and anytime I've ever seen a famous person interviewed, they get nervous, they get scared, or we see so many famous people that have addictions and issues, and they lose all their money and they're divorced and all these type of things. So I try to figure out, like, if you think through, they're just people like we are. They make good decisions, they make bad decisions, but the part that I'm trying to figure out that is they probably made one or two decisions in important areas. Like that lady, she probably was very nervous when she gets up to talk. She didn't seem like it, right? But she's done it so much. But she made one or two decisions in certain areas in her life that level, which was the writing, I'd say whatever she did, that allowed her to go to the next level in that one area in her life. So I try to boil it down and think, so what are those one or two decisions I need to make in my personal life? Because I have problems, I have issues, right? Just like they do. But they made these two decisions, right? They made two decisions, one or two, that allowed them to excel in that one area. And I just try to think, what are those two decisions, one decision that I can make to be super special in just one or two areas? And that's why I've chosen, to try to be special in serving seniors. I think that's what I'm called to do. Lots of problems, lots of issues, but hopefully just in that one area, I'll be able to make a big difference.
Wow.
Christina, I'd like to go back to something you said about earlier when you said, I decided to spend more time listening. And that is such an art. And there are so many people. I believe that every one of us has a story to tell. Mm-hmm. And it may not be on the par with some others, but they are dying to tell their story, and there's no one to tell it to. Now, there are a number of companies that are, I'm trying to think of the name of the one that I know particularly, where she started out her business by interviewing her aunt, and because she knew nothing about her aunt. And so she started to write up a series of questions, and it grew into a business where she wrote all these different questions and showed people how they could take parts of that and just begin a conversation with their parent or grandparent or whatever. And it's evolved over the years. I'll find it and send it to you, her site is. But that's one. Another one was a fellow who was a musician who took middle school and high school kids into nursing homes and recorded the music from their time, it was 30s or 40s, whatever it might be, and mixed the tape so that they would have that music at all times. And when people were exposed to hearing music that made them happy, obviously it made a difference in their life. And so there are things like that can be done. Now, the other thing, there's so many things. That's why I'm saying we're literally scratching the surface, because it's like peeling an onion. There's so much going on. But the idea that people don't have value is I've always maintained that the need to be needed in some form or fashion, whether it's paid or unpaid, is a universal desire. I don't care where you are. People want to feel that they have something to contribute. And when you deny them that right, you certainly, in many cases, hasten their physical withdrawal. And Becca Levy, who is a gerontologist at the University of Yale, said that if you're going in for an operation, for example, if you have a positive mindset, you're like 40% more likely to come out of that successfully. Mm-hmm. And then on average, a positive attitude about yourself and about life, you can add 7 years to your life expectancy. Mm-hmm. So, if you see that, and then, wait a minute, why am I beating myself up? Why am I allowing other people to beat me up? Because how can I maintain a positive attitude if that's all I'm hearing? And you hear it from family, you hear it from friends. There's all sorts of things where families are torn apart by what they expect mom should be doing when mom knows what she should be doing, but you think at this point you know better. And no one takes time to listen to what mom has to say. And I find that very telling. So there's all sorts of ways that we can begin to again address this issue. So
That's awesome. Jeff, I'd love to chime in on that too. We see a lot of seniors that are having to make very difficult decisions, as difficult as medicine versus food. We had one situation we crossed paths. It was one of the most heartwarming and heart-wrenching stories where a senior, he was a veteran, so he was having to eat every other day because he was figured out if he could eat every other day, he could afford to pay for the leftover bill of his wife's medicine, so she could have the medicine she needed to be able to function, if that makes sense. And you mentioned something about retirement and things. So what we never want people to quit working, but we want people to be able to work where they want to work and add value, work because they want to, not because they have to.
Right.
Like most people we run into, like I had a client, she was having to work at Publix and at McDonald's with young kids to be able to pay the bills. She had a $300,000 home completely paid off, and she thought reverse mortgage and what we do, the heck home reverse mortgage, she thought that meant she would lose her house. So she was literally working 2 jobs back and forth at 70 years old with over 300,000 in equity. So she didn't think she had a choice because she barely had $300 in the bank, but she had 300,000 equity, but she didn't think she could use it. Right. She was behind on her taxes, behind on her insurance, had to pay her mom's medical bill, just a whole mess of things. So what we love to do is to show people, hey, most people, and when you look at your investments, normally when you look at your investments, right, what's your biggest investment? Like, so if your 401k is the biggest, you're going to live off of that, right? If your pension's the biggest, you're going to live off of that. Well, if you have a small 401k and you have a small pension, but you have 3, 4, 500,000 in equity, that's probably the biggest thing. Maybe we ought to look at, what if you could live off some of that? Like, whoa, how does that work? Well, let me just show you. So like in her example, we were able to give her, we gave her 3 years worth of her salary in a lump sum. We paid all of her back taxes. We paid all of her back insurance, and she's getting a monthly check where now she's volunteering, able to volunteer. So she's still working, right? So she's got value and she feels better about it. But to your point is, my gut tells me she's going to live a lot longer and a lot more fruitful life working a volunteer job she's passionate about, instead of having to chase and argue with 18-year-olds at Publix and McDonald's, or get the call, say, hey, Tommy didn't show up. Can you show up? And because she's so hurting for money, she has to throw her clothes on and run to McDonald's to pick up an extra shift.
So Matt, I as I hear you say that, I'm saying, if people ask you, what do you do? And you say, well, I'm in the mortgage business. No, I help people live longer lives. And
exactly.
More fruitful. I love that. Fruitful. Look at what my reason for living, my purpose, what would be missing if I was just slinging French fries.
Yeah,
exactly.
But think about this in terms of his job and ability to successfully do his job, and his colleagues do their job. If they just think themselves, well, what do you do for a living? Which is what we normally ask, but what do you do for a living? No, I'm in the mortgage business. No, I'm in helping people improve the quality of their life. Well, how do you do that? Here's how. Okay.
So glad you asked.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. It makes all the difference. It really does.
Thank you.
I'm very sad. I'm very sad. There is a clock, and it says,
oh my goodness,
that we are at a point where I will say, you'll never find this unless you go to agingbetternetwork.com. That's agingbetternetwork.com, because autocorrect will say, no, you mean caregiver. And it really is caregiver kit. It's a practical guide.
Got it.
You will be able to find this one, but I will simply say that I wrote it because I learned it from nearly 100 different people who were 20 to 40 years beyond me, with their insight and their wisdom and their experiences. And I learned it from them. And so when you go to agingbetternetwork.com, you can see the books. There's one more that I can't hold up that's Kindle, The Act of Aging, because I'm just so darn practical. I would like for you guys to think of like the user, the LinkedIn user who said, I'm chiming in for 5 minutes and then I need to get to another client. So if they're listening to this now in the background, because that was much earlier that we got that message. I don't know who the mystery LinkedIn user is, but they can always get a hold of me and let me know who you were, to be sure that you read your link out loud for someone to be able to hear. Oh yeah, it was something about wisdom of ages. Oh yeah, it was something about. So the name of your book, your upcoming event. Matt, let's start with you because you've got a podcast, and make sure we know where we go to get in on Heckham, or help our friend get in on Heckham.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, so our audio version of the podcast, which will get you to the U page, is www.servingseniourspodcast.com. And that's where we highlight businesses and professionals that help seniors not just get by or survive, but thrive in retirement. So if you would like to be a guest, especially you two, I'd love to have you guys on there together or separate, or anyone else that serves seniors. We're always looking for guests. So we'd love to have someone on there. And then here's my phone number and my email, 615-400-6764. Emails on the screen. Please feel and reach out. We see ourselves as a resource for people that have anything financial questions with seniors. I just was at a senior center, and speaking of what you mentioned earlier about the pens, I don't know if you can see this, but I had little writing on my pens. You probably can't see it. So I changed it to huge font because I work with seniors.
We can see it.
So there's our ink pens. That's because why it's good to work with small, nimble companies that do their own market research from feedback from consumers.
Very good.
We hand these pens out, and so it doesn't have to be about mortgage. It can be about insurance. It can be about taxes. Anything. It can be, hey, I got this in the mail. Is this a scam? We're just a resource for seniors. So feel free to reach out if you have any of those questions, or maybe for your mom and dad. We'd love to help any way we can.
And Matt, I wish, if your schedule allows, I would love to have you join us tomorrow for our talk at noon.
Okay.
All right. I think you'd meet some interesting people on that call who may share your thoughts and your ideas on a lot of things. So
that would be so cool. Well, I'd love to get that. Yes, sir. Thank you guys. Thanks for having me.
Good enough. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, your turn, Jeff.
Oh, well, I was just going to say that I had mentioned earlier that people can do the smallest things and make a difference in how we change ageism. And first of all, I just want to share with you the definition of ageism is discrimination against anyone at any age. It's thought of as being discrimination against the elderly, but the young people are equally as discriminated. We marginalize both ends of the spectrum at a time when we need them to help us in terms of coming up with ideas and solutions to the problems that we face and they face. And so there are things you can do, like wear a T-shirt that has a positive message on it, or have a mug that has a saying on it that you can pass around, or begin a conversation starter. Or you can purchase my book, Wisdom of Age, by going to my website, which is www.wisdomofage.net and /blog. So I thank you. I thank you very much.
Wow, guys. This is so great. Matt, I was thinking, I'm so glad that I connected with a gal here where we have lived only for 2+ weeks, who I get to volunteer. I'm looking forward to it. I get to show up and drive someone to a medical appointment. I get to get on the phone because I love to talk, and I will try to keep listening. and alleviate isolation and remind that person of amazing things, and I get to direct them to listen to Jeff and Matt if they really are hungry. Their brains are really hungry for some information that they're going to have a perspective on, and it may be different than what we thought. It's like I get to direct them to this. So I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for what both of you do and that you both came today. And I will release you to continue doing good. Bye, guys. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.
Okay. Take care, Matt.